35 people staying at this church during a hurricane, did I
Yeah.
hear? And you were one of them?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was fun.
Fun.
I got to watch the younger kids. I got to listen to stories from the older people. When the roof came down in about the area you're sitting, I was one of the people that was actually in the next room over, and I had one of the lights that are above you fall on my ankle, and the water was about to your shin, and it was exciting. It really was. There was not a dull moment. We had trees falling in the back. We had, like I said, little kids running around everywhere.
What are you going to take with that experience for the rest of your life?
Knowing that I can be put under pressure and I'll be okay.
It's amazing when you just ask one or two questions. It's just like scratching the surface, and it's there, and they're ready to share, and they need to share it, and you watch them just try to hold it together, and then they can't, and they break down. I've done outreach in the Winn-Dixie, and when I talk about the services we offer, people have hugged me. People have just started tearing up and thanking me for the work that we've been doing down here, and everyone is just so grateful and so happy to have us here.
We hear horrific stories, people who have no home, they're living in a FEMA trailer with 8 or 10 family members. Stress levels are very high, and people are afraid to let down their defenses and say that it's all right to lean, all right to complain. We had a lady in here the other day who is well into her 70s who hated to ask for any help. She'd already taken a little bit of help from one of the volunteer teams. She was trying to hang the sheetrock in the ceiling of her house, and standing on her kitchen table, finally recognized that she couldn't hold the sheetrock, drill, and keep her balance on the kitchen table. And it's just that kind of story that we hear over and over again.
Well, I have a gentleman who's a client, and he has a wife and 4 children. 2 of the children have regular needs of medication. All their needs were being provided for prior to Katrina. He was a machinist, is a machinist, and he was at a job making $3,500 a month, and that was paying all the bills. They rented a house for $750, but all their needs were met because he could pay that rent, buy food, he had insurance, medical insurance, everything was taken care of. Post-Katrina, the company he worked for was totaled out. He got another job as a machinist, but instead of making $3,500 a month, he now makes $2,000 a month, no insurance, and the house that he rented for $750 is gone. The best house he could get close to that, now that rents have gone up, because they can, is now $1,300. So out of his $2,000 a month, $1,300 of that goes to rent. He has no insurance. He may still have a job, but you can see by this one example just how Katrina has impacted people's lives. Right now, housing there's really a housing shortage. You can't find a place to rent, and if you do, you can probably double what was been charged prior to Katrina, and that's what you're going to need to pay. And you're going to need to pay it because if you can't, somebody else will, and that's just the way things are here.
One individual that I met this week is 87 years old, and he's living in his car. His FEMA trailer is who knows where, and his wife is in a nursing home. He also is guardian of his granddaughter, and she thankfully is able to stay with an uncle, so she's continuing at school, and her life is sort of stabilized. Not necessarily normal the way it was before, but at least it's stable. And he, as the leader of the family, he is giving up basically everything to take care of these 2 women in his life, his granddaughter and his wife. And on top of all of that, now he's facing foreclosure. And fortunately, there is a law in place, and I think we're going to be able to get some assistance for him in stopping the foreclosure and giving him time to get his FEMA trailer and get his family back on track. But it's that story times 50, 60,000. and I do mean 50 or 60,000.
It's a time when people really need to tell their story over and over again as a way of achieving dignity and really validating that this was an earth-shattering, life-changing moment in their lives, one that many people who haven't visited the area cannot comprehend.
Just a couple blocks over, there's mass destruction. There's no street signs. And you had people that couldn't find their own houses because they couldn't find landmarks to figure out where they lived. And to be lost in a town that you grew up in, I've lived here since I was 12 years old, and not know where you are.
The story goes that there's this older couple that had flooding in their house, and they got there in the morning, and the couple didn't say too much, and they just started to get to work, tearing out the drywall, tearing out that kind of stuff. And finally, by the end of the day, they got the woman to break down, and she told them a story. The story was that in 5 months after the storm, they had a suicide pact. If they didn't get help within the 5 months after the storm, they were going to kill themselves. Well, it was early January. 5 months was coming up. 5 months would have been the end of January. And the person said, why didn't you just, fill out the paperwork earlier? We would have been here. They said, we didn't fill out the paperwork. I said, what do you mean? Isn't this your address right here? They look at the paperwork with the neighbor's address. They went to the wrong house.
Hey, bud. Yes. Right. That's Mom. We built the enclosure for the puppies so that Mom could get a break.
You guys are so cute.
Unfortunately, when the hurricane hit, there were a lot of animals who were left behind because the shelters wouldn't take animals. So those that survived the hurricane often got loose, and we're now we're now long enough afterwards where the area has been flooded with puppies and kittens, and half a day's work by some volunteers from the Archdiocese of Boston, and these little guys have a much more comfortable lot for the time being.
It was several days before there was any reality. It was like several days before I knew the bridge was out. It's a place where people go and they have to just go and see it, considering what it takes to move a piece of concrete. Because when people first came down, how long does it take to get to Biloxi? And then it would be like, now or then.
This is so large that even ourselves who have been here, through the storm and after the storm and working the relief effort, we can't get our arms around it. It's too big to comprehend.
So what do? You just keep listening and praying and documenting and doing the best job you can to connect up families with needs to resources that are available.
If you can give any gift to the people here, listen to their stories without judgment, love them where they are, offer the best of yourself in God's name, and then go back and tell the story to others so that they will be moved to reach out and to help people who will be recovering here for years. That's what our faith calls us to do, and to do that with absolute generosity of spirit.